Welcome back. I'm Ian Masters, and this is Background Briefing, available 24/7 at backgroundbriefing.org. And joining us now is Lisa Graves, the Executive Director of the new corporate watchdog group True North Research. She has served as a senior advisor in all three branches of the federal government, as Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department, as Chief Counsel for Nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and as a Deputy Chief of the Article 3 Judges Division for the U.S. Courts. Welcome to Background Briefing, Lisa Graves.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Well, thanks for joining us. And you, along with Sheldon Whitehouse, you've testified before his subcommittee in the Senate, and you have, among the very few people who pointed out the inordinate power of Leonard Leo, who runs the Federalist Society, who stacked the federal judiciary with unqualified judges. Well, now we have, not that we needed the proof, but now it's just so stark that this unqualified judge down in Florida, who was barely a lawyer, didn't pay her bar dues in Florida, was never a judge. She got railroaded through after Trump had lost the election. I think all Republicans in the Senate voted for her, and I think a lot of Democrats did too. And now she's come up with a completely political ruling that makes a mockery of the law. But of course, it's all in the defense of Donald Trump. And in fact, she's giving Donald Trump more than he asked for. So what more proof do we need that Leonard Leo and the Federalists are a cancer on American democracy?
I'm not sure we need any more proof of that, but this is certainly evidence that Donald Trump has chosen people who should not have ever been confirmed to the Supreme Court and to these lower courts based on their records. This is a person who, as you point out, Ian, was a lawyer, practiced law for barely 12 years. She was not distinguished in any way. I guess her primary qualification was being a member of the Federal Society, which is the right-wing group of lawyers that has been funded by big corporations like Koch Industries, as well as secret donors tied to Leonard Leo. And she was chosen by Trump to sit in a federal district court in Florida. It turns out that he actually filed his complaint attacking this the seizure of these documents in the criminal investigation. He filed that complaint in what's known as the Fort Pierce Division of that district court, where only one judge sits. The very young woman he put on the bench right after he was defeated as president. She was confirmed, as you point out, shortly after the election, and she was in her late 30s at the time. She's now 41, and she's someone who, as a former federal prosecutor for a very brief period, should have been actually deferential to what is a very substantial and significant ongoing criminal investigation. And yet she intervened in this extraordinary and political way, in a way that is, in my view, truly lawless and genuinely outrageous.
Well, it should be. First of all, the magistrate down there was the one who approved the search warrant. She has superiority over him, right, in the pecking order. And Trump clearly went shopping to her, thinking he'd get a result. He actually got more than he bargained for, I think, in her shutting down the case on an amazingly specious grounds. Because this is between the executive branch, at any rate, isn't it? She has no standing. I don't believe a federal judge, district judge, has the standing to stop a criminal investigation. Has that ever happened before?
It's truly extraordinary. And the fact is that magistrates are the ones who typically issue the search warrants. And in this case, the evidence that has been revealed so far provides substantial evidence to warrant that criminal investigation on multiple potential criminal charges against Donald Trump. And I don't know of any sort of comparable precedent for a judge behaving in this way, acting in this way. And, as you point out, she's gone out of her way to sort of add to the powers of this person who's designated as a special master, which is a sort of term of art in the judicial system, someone who's designated to review materials. But in this instance, she's halted the ongoing criminal investigation that doesn't halt the intelligence review to document the effect of his breach, his retention of these materials, including nuclear secrets of other countries and very sensitive materials about sources and methods, apparently, in the United States. That review by the national security community, the intelligence community, is ongoing. But what she's done is apparently stop the prosecutors from interviewing witnesses, including witnesses they've already interviewed in the course of this criminal investigation. So, she's someone who it's shocking that she has taken these actions. And she's also suggested that she has some sort of novel, broad view of executive privilege that's contrary to longstanding Supreme Court precedents around President Nixon and his behavior. But as you point out, Ian, the fact is that Donald Trump can't assert this sort of privilege in this way about documents that he had no right to retain, no right to keep. And he also can't unilaterally, by some magic wand, somehow declassify them or get around the plain language of the Espionage Act, which is not affected by whether something is, quote, specifically classified or not. So you have a political judge who was basically passed forward by Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. She was approved by every Republican senator who voted in that vote on November 12th, 2020. A handful of Democrats, 12 of them, did vote for her. 26 voted against her. And she is now a lifetime appointee on the bench. She's appointed at an age similar to when another very infamous judge was appointed, Clarence Thomas. So they want to find these ideologues early and put them on the bench in order to advance their political agenda.
And again, I'm speaking with Lisa Graves, Executive Director of the new corporate watchdog group True North Research. She has served as a senior advisor in all three branches of the federal government, as Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department, as Chief Counsel for Nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and as a Deputy Chief of the Article 3 Judges Division for the U.S. Courts. And another judge, unqualified judge from Florida, who was confirmed, I think, about the same time by the Senate, was this Judge Mizell. Another district judge, Catherine Kimball Mizell. She was the one who issued the nationwide injunction ending the mask mandate on the most ludicrous grounds. So what's the next step then? I mean, when you were chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, I'm sure there were some people that you and the committee were trying to stop. Why did any Democrat vote for her? That's what I don't understand. Would it have made a difference?
Yeah, I'm not sure why anyone would vote for her, although Joe Manchin and some of the other more conservative, so-called conservative Democrats did. It was largely, again, the Republicans who got her confirmed for Trump. But, it in my experience as the chief counsel for nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee, it was very difficult to stop district court nominees. We were successful in slowing down some of these circuit court nominees, including John Roberts for a period, and even stopping Brett Kavanaugh for a period, although he was ultimately renominated and confirmed after I left. Both of them were confirmed to different positions after I left. But, it is the case that in the nominations world, the right wing has been treating these judicial appointments like chess players in their political game, whereas the Democrats have tended to view the judges as neutrals. They're not, not fought over or fought for as political pawns. But the right wing, and certainly with the orchestrations of Leonard Leo and his dark money network, have been, very deliberately trying to pack the court with super young people to sit on those courts for decades to come, and whose primary qualification is their true belief, their alliance with this Federal Society agenda, which is, I think one that has proven to be with the Supreme Court decision, for example, in Roe, its decision in the case involving the EPA and other decisions to come. That ideology, that philosophy is a radical reactionary philosophy that is determined to roll back our rights. In this instance, you have a judge who, should never have been approved, in my view, had no prior judicial experience whatsoever, and had barely practiced law for more than a decade. And she's someone who now is trying to play a pivotal role in aiding the man who appointed her in his quest to use executive privilege and other, in my view, pretty specious claims about the criminal investigation. In fact, this is a man who in his rallies has rabidly attacked the FBI and the national intelligence community for doing its job, which is to try to keep us safe from people who would steal our secrets or mishandle them, as Donald Trump plainly has, in my view.
So what's the next step then? I mean, if they appeal, the DOJ, and of all people, former Attorney General Bill Barr recommended that they do. He's absolutely trashed her opinions and exposed the specious nature of her rulings. So she's definitely incredibly appealable, but the problem is the 11th Circuit is again packed with Trump judges. And then, then if it goes to the Supreme Court, forget about it. I mean, this is the state that we're in, that we have it literally activist judges on the right now who are ruling in a political way regardless of the law. And Trump, in this case, shot for this judge and got exactly the outcome he wanted, but he got even more, which is extraordinary that she shut down the whole process. So what can the DOJ do now?
Well, I do agree that the Department of Justice should appeal at least part of this ruling. I mean, the issue of attorney-client privilege was already resolved basically by the way DOJ approached the files to begin with. The 11th Circuit has been packed by Trump with the assistance of Leonard Leo and a number of very far-right appointees who've been put on the court by both Trump and by George W. Bush. And as you point out, and as everyone knows, this U.S. Supreme Court now is in the hands of some of the most radical reactionary judicial activists that have ever served in a judicial role in our nation's history, who are willing to overturn precedent after precedent. They may very well, if they receive this case, try to overturn the Nixon tapes precedent, which she basically suggested and Kavanaugh has suggested, might be something that they could overturn. And so we are in a very precarious position where one branch of our government, the supposedly independent branch of our government, the courts, has been deliberately packed with people who are not known for their background as being fair judges, but for their background of allegiance or alliance with Leonard Leo and his dark money operations in terms of his agenda, who have that credential. And you also have a situation in which it's very difficult to unpack the courts. It took many years for them to pack the courts this way, and it's going to take a deliberate, concerted effort to unpack the courts so that we can restore fairness to our court system, which is seriously lacking when you see decisions like the two that you mentioned by these appointees of Trump in disregard for longstanding precedents. So we are in trouble. Our democracy is threatened by Trump and his fans and supporters and the cult that he has cultivated. And our judiciary has been deeply damaged by the right-wing appointees that Trump and his predecessor Republican president put on the court, who seem determined to, in essence, expand presidential power, or the power of a former president in this instance, and limit the ability of we the people to have our rights protected by a fair and independent, truly independent judiciary.
But if they could establish this precedent of Trump being so privileged that he has to have a special master, which no other citizen has in this country, putting Trump above the law, couldn't that mean that this precedent would be very dangerous, that every criminal will be asking for a special master?
Well, I do think it's dangerous precedent in that sense. And the fact is that in general, in these federal court proceedings, the warrant is issued based on probable cause of criminal activity. That standard is it's not nothing, but it is something that appears to have been easy to meet in this circumstance. And the idea that it's an unprecedented search of a former president, bestows on him some special status that is not warranted. He is the former president. He's no longer president. He's not a sitting president. And he lost that election. And he is, like any other citizen in the United States, subject to the criminal law. And so what would be extraordinary would be not prosecuting him, not pursuing him for for any crimes that he's committed. And it appears that he may well have committed several. I think he has.
Well, can you then, there's always been shortages of judges and the judiciary's backlogged at the federal bench. So is one solution to get more judges on the bench?
Definitely. The fact is that for the U.S. Supreme Court, for example, the number is not set by the Constitution, but there have been 9 for over 100 years. And yet the United States has grown dramatically in size in the past century. This court, the Supreme Court, takes only about 10% of the cases that are brought to it. Actually, I think it's less than that. It's they receive 9,000 appeals a year, and they accept only about less than 100 cases, and they're handpicking those for the cases that this right-wing faction wants to rule on. In terms of the lower courts, the same thing. The courts have expanded over the last several decades, including a major expansion by Republicans when Ronald Reagan was president. But the fact is that we have too few judges, qualified and fair-minded judges in particular, but too few judges to handle the caseload of our very large and complex society. So I do think that we should have a modern 21st century American judiciary that looks like America and is not chosen because people are young members of this elite sort of right-wing society, but because they have genuine long-term reputations for fairness and fair-mindedness, that they can be entrusted with deciding cases involving individuals, corporations, and involving issues like this. And so I do think we need to expand the courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, and even add some additional circuits, these appellate courts, which also are staffed with too few people to handle the caseload of the American people.
Well, just in closing, Lisa Graves, I don't know whether she knows, this Judge Cannon, what the legal community has saying in response to her ridiculous amateurish rulings, which were clearly totally politically biased, nutty, crazy, twisting the law like a pretzel, poorly sewn, laughably bad, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's the same, I think, with Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito. They don't care, right? I mean, they just laugh when liberals get in on outrage. That's their fun. That's how they get their jollies, trolling the libs. Isn't that what's happening here? That we just had this kind of hateful cult that's metastasized into the new GOP, into Trump's GOP, and that they used to be the stewards of our national security, the Republicans, and now they're protecting a traitor. It's unbelievable.
It is mind-boggling. You think about that those issues of national security should be nonpartisan, should be above partisanship, because they're about our most important secrets for our national security, as well as the secrets of other countries, based on the new revelations that the materials included nuclear secrets of other nations, as well as dirt on allied officials that he would keep these materials. If anyone else, if any Democrat or someone who didn't even have a party a name or behind their name behaved in this way, had acted this way toward some of our most important documents, top secret documents with letter classification, had treated them that way, they would already be prosecuted. They would probably already be behind bars. And yet you have Republicans who over and over again are apologists for this man, no matter how egregious his behavior. And you have people at rallies shouting for him and clapping for him, applauding for his outrageous claims that he makes without regard to the fact, ignoring the facts. And you have a major network in Fox that every single night is basically spreading lies to the American people. And so it is truly head-spinning to see these Republicans willing to turn their back on our national security community, on the secrets that help keep us safe, in defense of this, in my personal view, most malignant presence in our political system, in its history. Beyond Joe McCarthy, beyond some of the other egregious examples of history, Donald Trump, in my personal view, is truly, much more than a blemish on our democracy. He's someone who has corrupted it in multiple ways and has, not single-handedly, but substantially undermined the integrity of the federal bench, of the federal courts, their reputation, our rights, and is in an ongoing assault on the very processes of our democracy, of our elections.
And of course, at Trump's latest rally, he put a target on Biden's back by calling him an enemy of the people. So that's how low we've sunk. I thank you for joining us, Lisa Graves.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you for having me on.
And again, I've been speaking with Lisa Graves, the Executive Director of the new corporate watchdog group True North Research. She has served as a senior advisor in all three branches of the federal government, as Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department, as Chief Counsel for Nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and as the Deputy Chief of the Article 3 Judges Division of the U.S. Courts. We're going to take a brief station break and be back assessing the change in the GOP from the party of law and order and the stewards of national security to a cult of lackeys who don't seem to mind that their beloved fuhrer has either sold, traded, or destroyed some of the nation's top secrets.